Okay, hey cats and kits everybody, Captain Zorik here, and we are here for the fourth of our rules sessions with Gladiators NYC. This is the third day that we're doing the rules of the melee according to the International Medieval Combat Federations. We're going to do it for at least 30 minutes and then we're going to see how we feel about continuing, because this is our regularly scheduled practice time. These are the rules of the International Medieval Combat Federation. Here in New York City, we do use some of our own variants of these rules because of the unique conditions here in New York and the unique conditions of the places in which we fight and the purposes for which we fight. By which I mean, is it an exhibition, is it a practice, or is it a tournament? Are we using padded gear or are we using full steel? When such occasions where such variants will occur, I will make note of them. And if any of you have questions during this about these rules, please feel free to raise your hand. I'll ask the question, I'll try to answer it, and I'll write it down, and I'll send it forth to somebody who may give an answer. Okay, so we had just gone through all the legal techniques to use. We had gone through the framework of the melees, and we had gone through the legal allowed techniques in all group categories. Group fights is what I call melees. So we begin at 6.2, forbidden techniques in all group categories. The use of any of the following prohibited strikes or actions against an opponent are a serious breach of the rules. Sanctions for breaking the rules might include a verbal warning or a disqualification and will be imposed whether the breach was accidental or on purpose. 6.2.1, thrusting is forbidden and grounds for immediate disqualification. When using axes or poles, moving an opponent's weapon out of the way is not included a thrust. And part A is, thrusting also includes stabbing blows with the shaft of the weapon or any pointed part of the weapon. Okay, so with a sword, it's pretty obvious what that means. This is a thrust, okay? And this is a pommel strike, and thus is not a thrust. So how does that translate to pole weapons? Okay, this would be a thrust. However, what he's talking about with regards to parrying weapons would be if there's a weapon out there and you happen to do something like this to parry it out of the way. That's okay, I imagine. But here's also, or like so. But here's also another rule of thumb, literally, that was declared like 10 years ago or more than 10 years ago when the Armored Combat League was getting started, is that the difference between a thrust and a pommel strike with a staff weapon is which way the bottom hand, that is the hand that is near the bottom of the weapon, is oriented. If it's oriented like so, wherein the thumb and the forefinger are pointed towards the opponent, that is then a thrust. However, if the thumb and forefinger are on the far side of the hand, on the top of the hand, if you're holding it erect, then that is a pommel strike. So we're going to be, pending confirmation by the folks who wrote these rules, this is how we're going to be figuring it in New York. That is a pommel strike and legal. That is a thrust and not legal. Everybody got that?
Yes.
All right. Okay. 6.2.2, climbing on the list or using the list to climb another fighter. That's a forbidden technique. The list, of course, is another name for the fence that goes around the rules. And it's pretty self-explanatory, but it's also brand new, which means somebody did it. 6.2.3, any holds with direct pressure on the neck are prohibited. The neck is defined as the section between the lower edge of the helmet and the shoulders, even if this area is covered with chainmail armor or plates. If a successful takedown is done by putting direct pressure on the neck with the weapon or the weapon's shaft, the marshal will raise up the fallen opponent and a warning will be given to the fighter who made the illegal takedown. If the warned fighter keeps performing actions by putting direct pressure on the neck with the weapon or the weapon's shaft, they will be sanctioned and put down immediately. First disclaimer, they said he, I use they. If I use gender-specific pronouns, pretend I didn't. Okay, second, so that's pretty much explanatory, but after consultation with Luke, who manages our fighting in public, there are some helmets wherein this helmet only goes down to about the bottom of the head, so doing this obviously is on the neck. But there are some helmets that go a little lower, such as certain types of armé or grand bassinets. And so I agreed with Luke that if it's on the neck part of such a helmet, it still counts as being on the neck. The way to avoid being on the neck, if you find yourself in such a position, is to consciously, say, wrap an arm around their shoulder and the other arm around their neck, so that way you know that you're not getting on their neck, or get it across their face, or just the whole thing across the face instead of the neck. That's a good way to protect yourself from violating that rule.
So any hold, say for instance you're in like a hold with somebody and like you have a polearm weapon behind them, not the back of the neck, but like back of like the head itself, essentially. You kind of do that, or like say for instance you're in the front, up against like the face, essentially, but nowhere.
Right.
So anywhere just like above head.
If the helmet does not cover the neck, then so long as you're on the helmet, you're good. And the only types of helmets that cover the necks are grand bassinets and armés and stuff like that. So if you find yourself caught underneath the top part, underneath the helmet, then you're in a bad place, and you've got to take it away. There you go. Otherwise, and here's why we need more referees, because it's difficult to see. It's difficult to see that, especially in a big crunch. So more eyes around the field, I will gladly accept, and I will authorize, and at any event that I'm the head referee at, I will authorize people who volunteer to be watching for that specific rule. Because I blew the call, because I didn't see it a couple of times. Okay, next, 6.2.4. Hi, welcome back. Holding any striking edge of an opponent's weapons or punching edge of an, wait, let me read this. This is very tricky. Holding any striking edge of an opponent's weapons or punching edge of an opponent's shields with a free hand. Oh, I didn't bring a shield here, but imagine that, holding any striking edge. So no, you cannot hold your opponent's blade in a melee. You cannot grab the melee. You cannot grab it in a melee. I'm pretty sure you can't grab it in a duel either, but we did that one a month ago. And we still got to get that one up on YouTube. Anyway, so if someone's fighting, you cannot grab their blade. You cannot grab the head of their weapon by the striking edge. Now, you want to be all rules lawyery about it? That's not the striking edge. Okay, but word for word, that's not it. And so now a shield has multiple sides, and obviously the leading side of it could be a striking edge, is obviously a striking edge, but also the sides that are parallel to your forearm, if it's that shape of shield, can be a striking edge. What about the back edge of it? That's something I'm gonna check with the authorities. Can you hold the back edge of a shield? I'm going to be checking with the authorities on whether or not they're going to rules lawyer that, or if they just want to say all edges of a shield. Let's see. Holding or grabbing the blade of the own weapon or the opponent's weapon with the free hand. So in other words, no half swording in duels. I mean in melees. Probably also in duels, but we're just talking melees today. So you cannot do this, bam, 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 in a melee, even though it was historically allowed, even though it historically happened in real battles, you can't do it in our melees.
Dang.
Okay. Striking an opponent with a one-handed weapon while using it with two hands. That means that Damian DeGrazia, the founder of Gladiators NYC, back in the early day thought, well, they don't have two-handed maces in the rules, but they do have they do allow weapons to be up to a certain weight. So if I make the longest possible handle while still being under that weight, I can call it a one-handed weapon and then grab it with my other hand. Okay, and actually in Battle of the Nations, the second Battle of the Nations that the USA team went to, there was a guy who, the rules said you had to have either a weapon or a shield in each hand. He came out there with a one hand, when the fight begins, came out with a weapon, with a mace and a buckler, dropped the mace. There's actually a pretty famous clip in a highlight video, slow motion, him dropping the buckler and grabbing the one-handed mace with two hands. Can't do that anymore. All right, so strikes to the inside of the elbow. All right, now I was a victim of that not being a rule before in Carolina Carnage last year, or I think it was last year. And it hit me right there on the fleshy part of the forearm, fortunately the fleshy part, 3 times, and it hurt worse every time. He was deliberately targeting that spot. I'm going to define for New York City the elbow as what's between the van brace and the rear brace, that whole area there. I'm not going to say it was on the forearm, you just didn't have armor on. No, I'm just going to call it the whole unarmored part in between the rear brace and the van brace. Don't hit them there. You could hurt them, seriously. All right, strikes with a weapon, shield, legs, or arms in the non-legal strike zone. That was 6.2.8. 6.2.9 defines the non-legal strike zone. The non-legal strike zone includes the feet, the ankles, the back of the knee, the groin, the armpits, the throat, and the neck. The neck is defined as a section between the lower edge of the helmet and the shoulders, even if this area is covered with chainmail, armor, or plates. So yeah, just don't do that. I saw that happen in a duel, but we're not talking about duels. So just don't do that. Strikes behind the knee with the penalties for doing this are covered later. All right, they're covered later or covered earlier. Strikes behind the knee with weapon, shield, legs, feet, or arms. They're being specific, even though it's redundant, they're being specific about don't kick the back of the knee. Don't hit the back of the knee with anything at all. Strikes behind the knee with, okay, said that. 6.2.11. Any vertical strikes with weapons or shield along the spine. And section A says, along the spine is defined as the area running in a straight line from the back of the neck to the tailbone. So that whole area, even past the waist. Just, if you're behind somebody and you think, oh, big, fat, juicy target, I'm going to suggest not doing this and coming straight down, no matter how much you think you're only going to hit him on the shoulder. Because all you have to do is just be a little bit off, and bang, there goes the spine. The guy goes down like a puppet with the string cut, and you get a yellow card or a red card. So if you're coming up behind someone, come up with a shot that's on an angle or horizontal. Don't come down vertical, just for the safety of you versus the rules and the safety of another person's life. Let's see, 6.2.12, kicks to any part of the knee or application of significant downward pressure with the foot or body to the opponent's knee. What they're trying to avoid is things that will make a knee do that. Okay, so that's why I'm really trying to get you to pick that knee up and push it out, so that way you can get it above the knee and get there above the thigh and get their hip, you know. So we're gonna start doing that with pads in the warm up, so that we can really get those knees up. All right, and I consider in New York City a kick shall be anything from the knee down. A knee strike is a different animal, but if it's anything from the knee down, on the shin or anything, that still counts as a kick, because you would use the same technique to be effective with a shin kick as you would with a foot kick. 6, 12, 13, downward stomps to the calf. So if you see someone and he's got his elbow on the fence and he's hanging on to somebody and his knee's right there, oh boy, I just need to get his knee down and bam, you're out. Don't do that. That used to be a common thing. There's a famous video of an axe blow that comes right down and dents the armor on the back of his calf, and that's why if you're in a melee, your greaves should go completely around your calf. No 3/4, no front half only. The Eastern Europeans do it because life is cheaper there, kind. There's so far no rule against striking it with an axe or a sword or anything, but don't stomp on it. 6 to 14. Twisting against natural direction of a joint and or painful hold. So yeah, none of that stuff. And also this has been used to interpret of don't pull the arm. So if you think, I need to get him away off the fence, I'll pull on his, no, don't pull on his arm. All right. Pressure or hooking, 6 to 15. Pressure or hooking the base of a helmet with a hand, as well as actions aimed at twisting the neck by pressing on the edge of the helmet. So yeah, don't think I'm going to take this and use it like a steering wheel and that's how I'm going to take it down. No, don't do that. It might be tempting because you've just executed a nice Muay Thai pull down here and it's like, oh, I'm just going to grab his helmet and take him down. No. Or I'm just going to take his helmet off, and then he won't have a helmet, so he'll be out of the fight. Don't do that. All right. 6 to 16. Painful holds, suffocating techniques, suplex, or similar throws designed to deliver an opponent onto the top of the head, such as a pile driver or tombstone, and fighting from the ground are forbidden. So don't think I'm just going to put my hand over his breathing holes and that's going to end the fight. Just don't do that. If you can pick him up and turn him upside down, don't drop him on his head. Pick him up and lay him on the ground or something, do something else. You can, theoretically, if you can get him up and push his face in the ground, that's better than getting him up and dumping his head on the ground. All right, next. 6 to 17. Deliberate attempts to remove any elements of the opponent's kit. Don't try to take their armor off in the field. 6 to 18. Punches with weapon hilts aimed at the face of the opponent if the gap between the hilt and the fist in combat mitten or glove is more than 3 centimeters or if a similar protrusion exists. In other words, I put on my,
sorry, the last rule
said
no removing of the kit. Does the weapons count as part of the kit?
No, they're referring to the armor.
Okay,
And they're referring to the armor, to the padding underneath the armor, that's their shoes, yeah.
And you mentioned no grabbing the striking edge of a weapon.
Right.
But could you, for instance, punch at their hand or punch at the weapon itself or just strike really hard at the bottom part of their weapon to try and score a disarm?
There's no score in melees. But if you want to disarm them,
yes,
there's so far no rule. I haven't come to any rule that says you can't strike their weapon by any means. So yeah, if you want to kick it, you want to punch it, sure. Now what this rule is, the one that we just covered here, take my gauntlet, I take a measuring device, and I see if there's 3 centimeters between the front of the gauntlet and the end of this here quion. And if there is, then you cannot do that because you'll poke your eye out, kid. All right. Okay. And the projections above the ricasso on Luke's sword are some judges will bounce that and not let it on the field. He swings that, right? And if he's really close in, that projection might go into someone's face. That's a concern. That's a safety concern that people have. All right, next, where are we? 6219, any holds, hold downs, or suffocating techniques with the hands or weapons around the neck from any direction are forbidden. The neck is defined as the section between the lower edge of the helmet and the shoulders, even if this area is covered with chainmail, armor, or plates. It's getting redundant, but they're just making sure that just stay off the neck. 6220, any strikes at a downed or kneeling fighter. Just don't do it. And just to confirm that down means if anything but your feet touches the ground. So, now just to clarify, you can be a mile away from the action and do this and you're fine. But if you're in the action and someone's trying to push you down and you try to hold yourself up, you're down. And once you're like this, don't hit him. He's down. Referee should call it. The guy should recognize it. He's down. Kneeling, of course. And the rule says 3 points of contact. And then it clarifies that it's assumed that your feet are always touching. Because some genius is going to say, look, it's not 3 points of contact. But I just prefer to say the bit about anything but the feet. All right. 6221. Any strikes at the neck or head of an opponent who has bent 50 degrees or more, except for an upward knee to the face. So if you've got a guy bent over or he's hanging on your waist or something, right about here, that's about 50. 45 would be halfway between fully up and fully flat. So this would be about 45. Once you're 50, you can't hit him in the head at all, unless you do a knee to the face. All right, you can hit him on the back, you can hit him on the legs, you can hit him in the butt, you can hit him in the thighs, you can hit him in the stomach, you can hit him on the side, you can hit him in the arms, just not the head. So, I mean, I'd want to just go bam, but no. Ribs, kidneys, that sort of thing. Oh, and chop straight down on the spine? No. It's a weird angle, but you might think, oh, that's perfect. No. Just try to get it at an angle. A good hard blow with a falchion to the kidneys will take it down. It took me down. There's video to prove it. 6222. Combatants should be in control of their weapons. Wild, uncontrolled flailing is a hazard to fighters and marshals alike and is forbidden. So make sure that the weapon you choose is something that you can control and not something that you wind up flailing with. If you're just hanging on with a limb and a finger in a prayer to the pommel of a sword and you're swinging it around, don't. Just try to somehow get a handle on it and get it back in action before you swing it with deliberation. 6223. Any actions towards a fighter who has raised one hand with an open palm. A raised hand with an open palm is a sign of voluntarily leaving the battle. And so know that if you're like, wait, you just took yourself out of the fight. Even it's like, my shoe's untied, you're out for that round. Inactive clinch that lasts more than 5 seconds. So if you guys are just hanging on to each other and then talking about what you had for breakfast because you can smell it and is that cinnamon? Then that's, there's lots of action going on, but a referee is probably going 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, it would be 1 Aquitaine, 2 Aquitaine, 3 Aquitaine. If they get to 5 Aquitaines, then they're going to break you up. And we're going to try to break you up without having to stop the whole fight to break you up. But try to be considerate to the rest of the fighters. At least punch them in the stomach or give them a tug every now and again, No, actually, that's killing, whatever. Dad jokes. 6225. Any attacking or blocking actions with no weapon in the hands. Somebody walked off the field with no weapon in their hands and put their hand up and held someone else's striking hand while they went off to get a weapon. That is not allowed. We'll get to the part about what to do. I'm pretty sure we'll find out. Any attacking or blocking actions with no weapon in the hands. Right. Now, I'm going to say rope-a-dope. because it is not towards the other person. If you feel that if you feel safer doing this while you're walking to get your weapon, while you're walking through the field to pick up a spare weapon, because the basic rule, which we'll probably get into in a minute, or we did last week, the rule is you don't have a weapon, you've got to get a weapon from where the weapons are at the edge of the field. Now, most places is going to be a fence with a tabletop, and the weapons are going to be on the tabletop. Yeah, we covered this last week, or either last week or the week before. The videos are on YouTube. There's weapons on a tabletop, and only a person on your team can hand you a weapon. Now, they can hand them from outside the fence. They can hand them from inside the fence. You may have a weapon in your belt. You can use that. If you can't go out there with a weapon slung from your wrist while you have another weapon. If you've got a weapon slung from your wrist, you got to be holding it. So you can't just go out with a spare like this. But if you have a weapon, if you're not holding a weapon in your wrist, if your weapon is dangling from your wrist, and you're not holding it, that's counted as not having a weapon, and you can't, as it says, attack or defend if you don't have a weapon in at least one hand. So you got to grab that thing. You can't pick it up off the ground because then you've touched the ground. What?
If you have only a shield but not a sword, does it count as having a weapon?
It counts as you didn't have a weapon because a shield's not a weapon.
Allowed to strike an opponent while they're going for a weapon? Just like strikes.
Oh, and I'll get to that. Yeah, and another person can hand you their weapon, and if they have a weapon in their belt and they give you if they have a weapon and a spare, or they have a weapon in each hand, they can give you one of theirs, and they still have a weapon. If they give you theirs and they don't have a weapon, then they are now in your condition, and they have to do something about it.
You said that you cannot pick a weapon up off the ground because then you'll be touching the ground.
Right.
So does that mean that once a weapon has touched the ground, even if it is like somehow, some way off the ground again, you still can't use it?
The only way, you mean like maybe some can go on, kick it up and then catch it?
Yeah.
Just don't. Because then you got a flying weapon, it's out of control, who knows where it's going to land. And oh, I'm good enough, I can do that, boom. And someone else goes, I bet you I could do that too, boom, ah! Just don't. Don't make us have to make that rule. And yes, you are every bit a target when you don't have a weapon as when you did have a weapon. And everybody is legal to do everything that could be done to you while you don't have a weapon, and you cannot do anything to them. But if you feel like rope-a-dope, and so what you're supposed to do is go to where the spare weapons are and get a new weapon. And if you feel like rope-a-dope is something you want to do, that's okay. If you want to cover yourself like that and risk your hands getting smashed, you go right ahead. But you can't hold their hand. You can't block somebody. You can't actively block. I'm considering this passive blocking. This is active blocking. All right, let's see what else they say. 6-2-26. Oh, any other questions about that? So that's why you sitting there saying, oh, I think I'll pick up It's perfectly legal.
Indeed.
And why you shouldn't have done that. 6-2-26. The fighter who is out of the battle due to a fall or being downed by a marshal, but is in the list, is strongly prohibited from doing any attacking or supporting actions such as grabbing the opponent and standing up on both legs before the command of the head marshal, all rise. If the fighter is out of the battle, he should take a comfortable sitting or lying position in the list, that's the field, and wait for the end of the round without interfering in the battle. By assuming a comfortable position, the fighter shows that he or she is not injured. A, if the list does not have a tabletop, grabbing the barrier with one's hand, weapon, or shield, or hooking it in any form, including the hand or the weapon or the shield, including the chicken wing with the arm, is prohibited. A marshal will audibly exclaim, "Hook!" and then issue a verbal count. Hook 1, hook 2, hook 3. And if the fighter has not released the barrier, he will be considered down and told to sit. Repeated abuse of this rule to gain tactical advantage will result of a yellow card for unsportsmanlike behavior. So, let's see. Now that's if the list does not have a tabletop. So if there is a tabletop, sure, you can grab onto that thing and hold it for dear life. Just recognize that the tabletop, that you are now on a literal chopping block. And someone is perfectly allowed to chop at you, so long as they don't chop to the inside of the elbow. So, if you turn that elbow up, and he hits your elbow, that's illegal on him, but that's also bad juju on you, because that's gaming the rules, and just don't. Just don't. And if you do this, you're exposing the palm. So, and that means, well, this is different from this. But still, you can hit your hand. It's in the rules. It's a legal target. All right, and so you're down, stay down. I recommend not covering yourself like this, because someone could fall like that. And that's why these swords have to be of a certain width, and these eye slots have to be narrower than that certain width. But not everybody, but some people will make it say narrower but wider. You know, narrower top to bottom but wider left to right, and then it will fit right in. So don't cover yourself like this. Put it down. All right? 6227. Any unsportsmanlike behavior towards marshals, spectators, opponents, staff, or any other person present during the competition is prohibited and will result in a yellow card. Unsportsmanlike behavior includes, but is not limited to, disrespect of any person, boorishness, disobeying the marshal's orders, foul language, yelling at marshals, spectators, opponents, or staff, etc., throwing to the ground or pushing the opponent's team, spare weapons, or pushing the opponent's team's spare weapons. They need to put a possessive there. That are placed on the tabletop will also be considered unsportsmanlike behavior. Throwing to the ground or pushing the opponent's team's spare weapon. I've seen that. I've seen someone go to the tabletop and just push the weapons off so that it's harder for them to get at them. So yeah, none of that. And even if you know that the referee is ordering you to do something that's not in the rules or is against the rules, follow it, talk to your coach, have your coach, team coach, talk to the referee. It says elsewhere, only one person on the team captain, is allowed to talk to the referee. So don't talk to the referee yourself. Have your team captain talk to the referee. And don't go continuing to do something saying, this is legal, this is... No, just... Yeah, because the referee may be telling you to do something for safety reasons. So if the referee says to do something, welcome Matt. If a referee says to do something, do it. Because whether or not it's in the rules, he may be doing it for safety. Here in New York City, sometimes I fudge the rules for the purpose of, when we're in Central Park, it's a show. And so long as nothing and nobody got hurt, I may decide, okay, you sit down, you stay up, we'll continue the fight, or no, we're just going to stop it here. Hello.
Hi, sorry we're a little late. The trains were in.
All right, so I just went through all the illegal moves, but the golden rule when you're fighting is if the referee says to do something or not to do something or don't do it, even if it's not in the rule, even if what he says to do it goes against something you think is in the rules. Okay, and Matt, slide over just a little so you get a clear view, so that way that person gets a clear view. Okay, good.
Height order.
All right, and I will stand here. If I'm over here, well, I'm still tall. Okay, so Now, we're on the last page and the last portion of the last page, so we're just going to blow through this. These are definitions of things that I described earlier in the rules, and then we'll get to the active part of practice. Okay, definitions, chapter 7. 7.1, hook. Hooking is grabbing the top rail or tabletop end of the list with one's hand, weapon, or shield, or with the arm, a chicken wing for instance, in a way that prevents the fighter from falling, escaping, or to provide a tactical advantage when performing any technique against an opponent. Now, if there's we just went over that rule, if there's a tabletop on top of the fence that surrounds the field, you are allowed to grab it. But if there is not such a tabletop, you are not allowed to grab it, hook it, chicken wing it, stick your weapon over it and hang on to it that way. Then the referee will be saying, hook 1, hook 2, hook 3. If it's me, I may even be tapping the underside of your elbow or something, saying to get off. And if you don't, then you're going to be sat down. Clinch. 2 fighters are engaged in a 7.2. 2 fighters are engaged in a passive grapple and are not actively fighting with punches, weapons, or kicks. We're talking about melees here, we're not talking about duels. And so, much like in boxing, if you're clinched into each other and you're not doing anything, we're here to fight. We're not here to whisper into each other's ear. So it'll 5 seconds, 1 Aquitaine, 2 Aquitaine, 3, etc. And then break it up and you're here to fight. Let's fight. So let's see. Disarms. A competitor drops their weapon for any reason during a competition. If it's in a melee and you drop your weapon, then you can't pick up that weapon. We went over this. You can't defend yourself. You can't attack anybody. Everybody can attack you. You have to. The only thing the only action that is available to you is to go and get a weapon from where the weapons are at the side of the field, which will, if there's a tabletop on the fence, they'll be on top of the tabletop, and another person has to hand it to you, or you can take it off of the tabletop yourself, but you can't pick it up off the ground. Fall, 7.4. Competitor loses their footing and falls to the ground for any reason during the competition. In a melee, if anything but the bottom of your feet touches the ground, you're out. There's some nuances involving if you take somebody down and you bounce right back up, having not touched the ground, then you're still good. These are on the YouTube, on the New York Knights Combat channel, because they're addressed in a different section of the rules. Pummeling, 7.5. Strikes with the butt of a sword or a hafted weapon, like so. Now, we already went over, if the thumb and forefinger are on the far part of your hand from the butt of the weapon, that's pommeling. If your thumb and forefinger are on the closest part of your hand to it, that's a thrust, and that's illegal. Oh, and also pool cueing, either this way or this way, that also is going to count as a thrust, and that's not legal in melee or duel. Let's see. Strikes. Significant impacts with the striking edge of a weapon. Not the flat and not a glance. That's the edge of a weapon. That's a glance. And notice how the edge of the weapon didn't hit it, so it doesn't count as a strike. That's the flat of the weapon. Notice how it wasn't the edge, so that doesn't count for glance. Melees don't have points. The only hit that counts is when you hit the ground. 7.7, successful takedown. The fighter who performs the takedown is left standing during or at the end of that technique. You execute a successful takedown, the other person is out, you're still in. If you're down, you're out too. Sometimes you might consider the other fighter to be of greater value, or the other fighter might be the last one on their team, and there's still 2 or more of you on your team. So going down with them, a sacrifice play, and go right ahead and do it. But normally you want to remain standing when you take someone down. 7.8, loss of a weapon. when a fighter fails to hold his weapon with his hands, and as a result, the weapon falls to the ground. Now, so according to this, it hasn't fallen to the ground yet, so I haven't lost my weapon. I'm still good. I'm still good. Okay, good. Now I'm even better. All right. You can still hit him at any point in this, but aside from the physical impossibility, he can't hit you, but he's still got the weapon, so he could still engage in motions and actions because he's not lost the weapon. So you find yourself like this in a melee, keep on fighting, whatever you can do until you can get your hand back on it. True story. First pro fight any American was in at the Battle of the Nations was me. The sword was so heavy. We didn't know how to make swords in America. And I was hiding behind the shield, the fact that I wasn't holding the sword. Okay. Anyway. 7.9, weapon breakage. When a fighter's weapon is damaged and or broken and no longer meets the technical requirements of the rules. In such a case, even if you're still holding it, it doesn't count as a weapon because it no longer meets because weapons have to be certain sizes and weights and the width of the edge and all that stuff. And if it's no longer that size, weight, or something else is wrong with it, it's not a weapon. However, if you've got a weapon leashed to your hand by a lanyard and it breaks, like an axe or a mace, and it breaks, you still have to hang on to it. Because if you don't hang on to it, we've got this thing wildly flinging about. But it's not a weapon, so you're not armed, so they can do anything they want to you, and you can do nothing but go try to get another weapon. And when you get that other weapon, you gotta take the broken one off your wrist, or else you gotta take it off your wrist, because you can't have a not weapon in the field. So it's basically a such to be used category. Weapon breakage, we did that. 7.10, last one, armor failure. When some of the elements of a fighter's armor is damaged and or no longer meets the technical requirements of the rules. Now, there's no rule that says how many straps have to be on leg armor or arm armor or anything, any armor is, in fact. So you might have 2 straps on your thigh and one of the straps goes and we'll say, oh, it's okay. Now, here in New York, we're doing an exhibition in Central Park. I'll say, go ahead, get some duct tape, strap it on, let's keep the show going. Some tournaments will allow such field expedient repairs, some may not. The whole point of this sport is to experience, as much as can be safely done in the 21st century, what it was like to be in a tournament as a knight, in armor with the weapons they used by rules that are based upon rules that they used. They didn't have duct tape. Well, okay. It is true that in some tournaments the swords were made out of wood and they glued fabric on it and painted that fabric silver. That's duct tape. Okay, but they didn't have rolls of it that they could just go shh, 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 shh. Did they take out leather thong and tie it around? Did they have some kind of bandage that they would use? I don't know. But some tournaments don't want the audience seeing duct tape holding someone's visor on their helmet. So that's why it's always a good idea to check all your armor. And if your armor isn't covering that part of your elbow that it's supposed to cover, me as a referee have to say, I'm sorry, that doesn't cover that part of your elbow, so I can't let you fight today. So, much like motorsports, the quality and upkeep of your equipment will materially affect your game and as its relevance to what we're doing, fulfilling the requirements of the rules is as important a part of anything, because these rules are here because somebody did something or didn't do something and they got hurt. So, if the referee says something, follow it, tell your captain to argue it later, and any questions? No? All right, well then, let's move these chairs aside and do what we can in this room. All right, thanks for watching, everybody. Now we're going to go and practice here at Manhattanville Community Center. Thank you for watching. I love you all. Captain Zorik is coming at you. Lou, Marlon, and everybody.
The object is if for melee is last man standing.
All right,
We
looks
like
like
to refer to it as a scrum with weapons.
Rules of a melee are very simple. One team has to get the entire other team, or to make them quit. You can get pain compliance sometimes. Most of the guys who do this are tough enough that they're not going to quit until they're on the ground. So you beat them down into the dirt, kick their feet out,